Welcome back to the channel. My name is Holly and I am a final year trainee clinical psychologist in the UK. In case you don't know, the Clinical Psychology Doctorate Training Programme application cycle began this week by applications being submitted. And the application is mainly done on a website called Clearinghouse, but there are some courses that you might apply directly to, or if you're an international candidate, you might apply directly as well. But I do have a video explaining the process if you're unfamiliar with it, so go and check that one out. I'll link it down below. Today we are going to be breaking down some of my tips for what to do after the DClin application has been submitted. What's next? You know, you may be finding yourself thinking, okay, so what do I do now? I have spare time where I don't have to be thinking about the personal statements. Or how am I supposed to cope with the nerves leading up to the outcomes? Which, I mean, you have a few months to wait until the outcomes. So let's go through the tips. Tip number one is to reward yourself. I know that sounds really silly and probably quite obvious, but actually people that apply usually to clinical psychology training programs are people that just go and work hard and you're striving. And actually it's quite a challenge sometimes for us to stop and say, that was quite hard actually. Well done me. And I'm really proud of myself for getting through that. Part of the reason for that is because the application process is very different to lots of other application processes, and the application form is also quite different, and you have to write about things in a different way that you probably won't have done before. So it is actually quite a lot to try and go through. You know, you're being asked to break down some of the most important lessons that you've learned professionally in a tight, like 3 paragraphs. It's tiny, so it takes quite a lot of work and drafting and time to be able to do that well. So I think the first really important thing is to reward yourself when you've submitted that application. Just think to yourself, okay, right, I've done that now. That's a big tick in that application box. We've done it. So what can you do to reward yourself? I'd say going out with friends you could do. You could play your favourite game, have your favourite drink, favourite food, go out for a meal. Just not book anything if that's what you'd like to do. Spend time with yourself. That's one of my favourite pastimes. Just do something that you are actively acknowledging that this is a reward for yourself and that you've done really well. Because I really do think it helps. Tip number 2 then is to take a break from thinking about the DClin. These kind of all of my tips actually probably link to each other and go hand in hand, but I really do think taking a break from thinking about it just gives you a bit of space. Because for some people, like I said, the DClin application can take up hours and hours and hours and all your focus. For some people, it isn't that. But either way, you still need to have a bit of a break about thinking about the DClin, you know, a break from thinking about it. I would also say that extends to work, because we'll all be working in psychological professions in some capacity if you've applied for the DClin. So just taking a break about thinking, okay, how does this experience make me a better candidate for training? What am I learning in this job that's going to make me a better candidate for training? Just take a little break from that kind of mindset and just think about enjoying the work that you're doing and enjoying other aspects of life that aren't work related. I think the real value of that is when it comes round to the outcomes, which are in March, I think, February, March sort of time, you will have had a bit of a break and you'll be ready to kind of prepare for those outcomes in a different way. And I think it's just quite good practice for even when you are in training, actually, it's quite good practice of being able to compartmentalize and take time away from the DClin in your brain and just have a way of managing that. So I think it's good practice for that as well. And tip number 3 is self-compassion. So what I mean by this, I guess self-compassion kind of underlies the first 2 tips as well, of rewarding yourself and taking a break. But I think what I mean more is about the way that we talk to ourselves in this process. There are lots of narratives flying around about how impossible it is to get on, and I know someone that applied 10 times. I know people that have done different psychological professions because they couldn't get onto the doctorate, and at university they'll be like, don't try for the DClin, it's too competitive, go for other types. You know, there's a lot of really negative messaging around it. And also when you're on training, you know, I'm guilty of perpetuating that same narrative of training's really hard, everything's really difficult, it's such a challenge. All of these things, it's just not necessarily a very positive way that we talk about the DClin and things like that. So I think we can speak kindly to ourselves about it, and actually, yeah, if you're not very happy with your application, well, there's nothing you can really do about it now. What you can do is learn from it for next time. And also, it's really hard to tell how well an application is going to do because it depends on all the other people that are applying to the courses and what their criteria are that year. It really does change, and trying to kind of be a bit more compassionate and kinder to yourself. Just think about how you can speak a little bit more kindly to yourself. So if you're thinking, oh, I really wasn't very happy with that question on my application form, well, what can you do about it now? And also, is that the kindest way to think about yourself? Going, oh, I wish I could have done that better, or you're really rubbish, you couldn't do that. We get very critical of ourselves a lot of the time. So really trying to just put in a little bit of self-compassion, I think is a really valuable, again, a valuable skill, not just for the doctorate or for work, but also for personal life. Just speaking to yourself a little bit more kindly. If you need a technique to kind of get into that mindset, because sometimes we think we might be doing it, but we might not be. Imagine that the thoughts you have in your head about yourself, which will come and go, we can't always control our thoughts. They'll come and go. We'll have these negative thoughts about ourselves. Imagine that a friend was saying those things to themselves about themselves. How would you respond to that? How would you respond if a friend was saying, God, I'm so rubbish. Like, I really wish that I could have done better. Or, oh, I don't have enough experience. I'll never make it. Or my application was rubbish. Like, what would you say to that friend? And just trying to say it a bit to yourself as well can be helpful. The alternative to that, because some people do really struggle with it, is to find someone in your life that gives you that compassion and talk through it with them. Whether it's a partner, friend, a parent, another family member, a supervisor, whoever it is that can give you just a little bit of compassion, I think that can help, and we can learn how to be compassionate from other people around us as well. And tip number 4 from me and Keita is, she's going. Tip number 4 is all about managing expectations. I think it's really easy when we've submitted the application to think, let me think about what it would be like to get on, or what it would be like to get the maybe, or what it would be like to get rejected, and just think about all those scenarios, and it can get whipped up in your head into a big frenzy, and then suddenly you're at the outcomes and you're like, wah! I would say to try, honestly, not to think about it. I know that's about as helpful as telling you to use a chocolate teapot, but I think trying to distract yourself from that is going to be a helpful way of managing the next few months, because ultimately there isn't anything you can do now, and you have to wait for the outcomes. You have done all the bits that you could possibly do, all the bits you can control, you've done. So now you just have to wait and try your very, very best not to really stress about it. So those are my big tips. The other thing I would say, and I can't stress this enough, is that the process is really hard. And I know what I've just said about narratives, but the process is really hard. And these tips are all far more about just basic understanding of ourselves and being able to look after ourselves in difficult situations. And also, the DClin is not everything. You could have, people told me that before I was on training, and I was like, yeah, thank you. But it was everything in my head. So I really do understand both sides of it, because I find myself giving this advice all the time now. I'm like, it's really not everything. It's just a job, all of those things. But that's not how I viewed it beforehand. But anyway, I will also do a video around February sort of time around how to manage anxiety around the outcomes of the DClin application. But let me know if you have any tips in the comments, anything that you're going to be doing in between now and the outcomes to reward yourself, to take a break, or give yourself some self-compassion, or anything else that you might be doing. I really want to know, so we can share all of this knowledge as a community. It's been so lovely having you. Thank you so much. Take care. Bye-bye.